All righty. And we are recording. It's a solo rant. Something about some of these lights I have that always make my lips look just a little blue. And I'm always kind of worried that I'm like ODing. And then the rational part of my brain comes in and goes, but you're not doing any drugs. And so I always have these like whoops. I always have these like slight fears that I'm ODing. I'm like, oh, it's a big one. And it's like, I have never done opiates or anything. So that's not true, not anything, but solo rant time. So um is my microphone stand wet? It is. Um so I love Annie Jacobson and I love all of her books. I love her voice. She's sexy. But I really love her works. I mean, I've listened to Operation Paperclip so many times. Area 51, I've listened to a couple times. I've listened to Surprise Kill Vanish, I think twice. Uh, First Platoon, I'll listen to that back in earlier this year, like March, April. Very good. DARPA, I've listened to DARPA a couple times. What are all our books? Operation Paperclip, listen to that. DARPA, The Pentagon's Brain. Area 51, Surprise Kill Vanish, First Platoon, and then Phenomena, which I have started on 2 or 3 occasions, and it never really, I don't know, it never really like took off with me. I'd start it and it was and I'd start it again and it was like every time it was like 6 months to a year apart. And what I have found with audiobooks is there's like two tactics. You just bulldoze through it, and I did that with The Arms of Krupp, which was like a 40-hour audiobook about the history of the German arms manufacturer Krupp, Krupp, or as they say, Kruppiana. And that's just one I wanted. I just wanted the information in my head. Like Dr. Meryl Nass said in the first podcast we did together, I don't always enjoy what I'm reading, but I want the information in my head. And that's definitely stuck with me. Like some mornings you really want to go to the gym. Other mornings it's like, hey man, like I don't want to do this, but I do want the muscle mass. I do want the cardiovascular health. So that's definitely helped with taking down books that maybe I don't love. Is I mean I want the information in my head. Um and and that's kind of like a problem I've had before is listening to books, and unless I'm like truly loving every second of it, I'll just stop listening to it because it's obviously not for schoolwork. Can't get this microphone how I want it. How do I want it? I don't know. How can I have it how I want it when I don't even know how I want it? But now I feel like it's right in my face. I can't fucking make up my mind today. Oh shit. Nope, now it's coming off the table. No. This is a professional production here at TPC Studios. Um so this is really driving me fucking crazy. Some days it's fine and it's been the perfect spot for days in a row. And then there are some days where I cannot stop fucking with it. But yeah, so with some books, I've realized like, hey, just because you don't like it doesn't mean you should. Now, if you start from the get go and it's just a complete shit show and you just don't like it, and the narrator sucks, whatever, yeah, sure, back out of it. But if it's an interesting topic and if there's not another book on it, well, then you kind of gotta bulldoze through it. And so, kind of taking that mindset back to Phenomena, I was like, I want this information in my head because the idea seemed a little kind of woo, a little more out there. And like I don't listen to fiction books because I like having like real world historical data in my head, because the more you learn about the world, the more easily you can navigate through it and kind of forecast what's going to happen and uh, make changes and kind of change the world how in a way that you see fit. And so with Phenomena, I was like, all right, let's just get through it. And because finally I concluded, I was like, all of her other books are amazing. They're all very, you know, they're not out there. They're all backed by, articles and first person interviews and to classified data and sources, and it's all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Dot the I's, cross the T's. And so I was like, all right, well, clearly there's going to be something in here interesting. So her book Phenomena, which is about ESP and psychokinesis, which, if I'm getting it right, it's one is the ability to see. It's either like see the future or kind of remote view, like see something else somewhere in the world. That's one side of it, and then the other side is like you can enact change on the world with your mind, and not in the way that like human beings do, like building roads and shit, but rather like one would be, if I'm correct, ESP would be like you come up to me with a box and I don't know what's in it, and you say view it, and I see a spoon. That would be like ESP. And then psychokinesis is you would say do something to the spoon. It wouldn't necessarily be that you wouldn't be in a box. You would just pick it up and go hold it in front of me and go do something to the spoon, and you'd like bend it with your mind. So that's the kind of the two categories. It's like viewing something, extrasensory perception. That's what it is, ESP, and then psychokinesis, right? Kind of make psycho and then kinetic kinesis, right? Changing of the physical world. So I got into it, and I kind of got to the first part, which I'd gotten up to several times, like 2 or 3 chapters in. And it was like, yeah, okay, the Nazis were interested in it. And we were bringing back this information because if the Soviets could use it, we want to be able to use it. But it started kind of going into more and more of like, all right, sure, the CIA was fucking with it, just like they fuck with everything to see if we can get something out of it. But it started to get like a little hairy when it was like, all right, they would have these like neutrino detectors, which are like under concrete and inside Faraday cages. They're underground, and they're to detect like neutrinos, which, if I'm correct, are like massless particles. And I mean, you might see pictures of them, like kind of present day ones. They look like these weird. It almost looks like a sci-fi movie set. They're like these weird underground, like spherical caverns. They're huge, and like the walls have all these like mirrors or balls on them, and it's like they're full of water, and like scientists will be out there in like little kayaks. It's really sci-fi shit. And I just remember seeing like a picture of that years ago. Oh, my washing machine stopping. Um, so it got a little hairy. Oh, it just stopped. All right, hold on. I got to go start this. No, there's no one to monologue, so I don't know. Fill the void by yourself, guys. Neutrinos. Annie Jacobson. Phenomena. All right. This gotta start that laundry machine. My washer and dryer suck, so I gotta run them all twice, and it takes like an hour to go through. So I gotta. You want an organic podcast? This is an organic podcast. When I gotta run out of the room to start the washer, yeah. So they had this thing that was like underground, and it's like a neutrino detector, and it's so that it blots out all other particles and waves and what I don't understand it. And they brought in this guy, and they were like, can you like change it? Can you like enact change on it? And it's this thing that's like shielded from everything. So whether they blasted it with microwaves or radio waves or x-rays, or whether there's an EMP or what, it's meant so that none of that gets through. It's only neutrinos. And so they have like the baseline, which is basically like the Richter scale, right? So it's not exactly still, but it's you have your baseline where it's just like a little squiggly line back and forth, like the ink on the paper, you know, with the like a lie detector thing. And they were like, "Can you kind of?" And he was like, "Well, I need to know what it looks like so I can view it." And they were like, "That's actually classified. Like we can't even like beyond this test, we actually can't tell you that." So he's like, "All right." And this thing's below concrete in a Faraday cage underground. And he's there with Hal Puthoff, who's like an esteemed physicist. And Hal Puthoff, I think he works for SRI. Like he works for one of these, or maybe SAIC. He works for one of these huge defense contractors, and he has for like 30, 40 years, or if not longer, maybe 50. This guy's brilliant. I think he was in DARPA or skunk work. I mean, he's just got the rap sheet. Is that the right word? Maybe resume? I don't know. I wonder if I could get Hal Puthoff on here. I'm gonna make a note of that right now. Hal Puthoff. And so he's like, all right. And he starts like the thing starts like deviating like wildly. And apparently, I mean, it's almost like a scene from a movie. Apparently, one of this like both scientists kind of just went white, and one of them even like ran out of the building. It just kind of like this is and they did tests like this before. They did tests with like viewing exact coordinates. And one time they were like, hey, view this area, like give him coordinates. And the guy running the test was actually giving him. So that first one was psychokinesis. He was affecting the thing. They did another test with another guy. And one of the generals in this like classified program gave him coordinates to view. Right. And what the guy viewing didn't know is it was the general's like lake house. Right. And it's a log cabin wherever out in wherever. And the guy starts viewing it, and at first he's describing it correctly. He's kind of describing the road. He's kind of describing, and then he's like, but he's more drawn to something like a mile down the road. And they're like, all right, go there. And he goes down, and he's like a classified building, and he's going in, and he's describing like these different rooms and these different computers, and the general's like, this isn't no, that's joke's on you. I gave you my lake house. What the general didn't know is that there was like a special access program of like hidden nuclear silos. They're the ones that the Soviets knew about, which they would obviously nuke. And then we had like hidden ones. And so they actually had to go searching within special access programs. And they found out the general had no idea that he lived like a mile away from one of these, like, I don't know if it is MX or Titan, one of these missile sites. And he's going in there, and the guy's describing, he's like very and he's going in, and he's describing like radio, like when he starts describing a missile, and general's like, no, there's not a 200-foot missile back here. Turns out there fucking was. And so now there's like two things that kind of like the CIA takes over the program, and then the NSA took it over. And then the NSA actually made it a special access program with like levels inside of it. They go and describe it. I mean, it's like one of those like Russian dolls. It's like they had these like 3 layers. They had a program, and then inside of that they had a program. And I know one of them was called Grill Flame. And then inside of Grill Flame there's a program, and inside of that program was Grill Flame. Grill Flame was Grill Flame. Inside of Grill Flame was a third program. And then inside of the third program, there were 3 tiers. So it's just special access inside of special access inside of special access. Because now it's one thing when they're bending a spoon at a dinner party. It's another thing when they're like, think of a number between 1 and 100, and they know it. And it's like, are these parlor tricks? It got very real after those 2 things, because that first one said is, here's a guy, and the first one where he had to know what he was viewing, or he had to know like, so not that, because so obviously if you want someone to view something without them knowing what it is, I have a box. What's inside of it? Is it a mouse? Is it a spoon? Is it a pair of dice? Obviously, you're not going to tell them what it looks like. So, but that's not what they were doing with this. They wanted to know, can you affect change on the thing? So viewing something that you don't know is there is one thing, right? Missile silo by a cabin. The other thing is you want me to enact change on it. And so he has to know what he's looking at. So he didn't even know what he was looking at. He didn't know what this neutrino detector looked like. And he still managed to enact change on it in a way that physics as we understand it is impossible. And then he did it again several hours later, and they let it go back to baseline. And they could not explain it. So is he bending a spoon? No, now it's a classified program that is also breaking down how we understand the laws of physics. So now it's kind of in like the big leagues. Now it's like, hey, you're not playing it, It's like if Spider-Man existed, Spider-Man wouldn't just be flying around New York. Like he would be seized by like national security like agents and like brought to DARPA. Like it would go very quickly to like you have superhuman like capabilities and now we want Delta Force to have these. Like it wouldn't go about as just like, oh, look at this thing go. It went from parlor tricks, spoons, seeing things, think of a number between 1 and 100,000 to like, oh, you can do this now. So it very quickly goes like, oh, you can see how many dollar bills I have in my wallet to now it's like you can see what's inside like a secure compartmentalized information facility, a SCIF, where you can see behind nuclear blast doors. And then the second one, obviously, enacting change, right? So now it's not he's bending a spoon. It's like, well, if you can fuck with that, well, their fear was, can you fuck with the guidance system of an ICBM? Paired with, can you find a missile silo with an ICBM? And he did. That the general didn't even know about. None of the guys in the program knew about. Like normally you know what the coordinates are. The guy does not. He found something at the coordinates that the guys running the tests didn't know was there. So now very quickly it's Spider-Man shooting webs to like Spider-Man, how do we not know he's going to be at a presidential inauguration? What if he's going to shoot it at some diplomat's head and yank back and break their neck? It very quickly goes from like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to like, Mason, what are the numbers? Like it very quickly goes to Cold. And so this is all during the Cold War. So, and then the whole book is just examples of this, and each one's wilder than the next, to the point where Delta Force utilized it in the 80s for some, VIP terrorist kidnapping, I think somewhere in Italy. Like Delta Force utilized it. And then so they used it during the Iran hostage. I know I get passionate about subjects when we're 10 minutes in and my face is already red, just screaming about psychokinesis, which is did the washer not start? God, that's such a piece of shit. Whatever. So it very quickly gets very real. And yeah, so Delta Force used it. And my logic is this, is they eventually said they stopped using it, which I think is bullshit. I think it probably went black. And oh yeah, and they used it in the Iranian hostage, and like they're asking them to like view where the hostages were, and like one of them was viewing something else, and they described it as like a raid going wrong, and apparently they were viewing like the super Operation Eagle Claw when like we sent in like special operations forces and like their helicopter crashed in the desert. Like again, so now they're viewing things that they weren't even asked to view. And so there's these huge national security issues. Well, okay, can you view the nuclear codes? Do you know where the nuclear subs are? I mean, the deterrent against thermonuclear Armageddon. Yeah, the washer's running. I know everybody here is very concerned about it. So my logic is this. What is bear with me. What is radar? Right. And you think back to like those World War I images where it's like you've probably seen those pictures and it's like these enormous, they almost look like horns, like Lord of the Rings horns, but they're basically enormous ears. I mean, the openings are 10, 15 feet wide, and they're 20 feet up, and they're wrapped around themselves like almost like a conch shell, and then the tube gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and it comes all the way down to the point where it's like the size of like earbuds. And then there you see like a soldier standing there, and it's so they can hear everything, right? Like a deer's ears. I remember my dad always said, deers have their ears are like the best radar system in the world. So that's what like radar is, right? You could say like human sight, being able to see, and then radar, then it gets amplified from now actually listening to like shooting bursts of energy out and reflecting and coming back. But it starts with an amplification of the ear, so you got this weird steampunk kind of Jules Verne thing, and then it turns into radar. What is sight? Seeing something. And then you get like telescopes. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about it in his book Accessory to War, kind of the marriage between like like the science culture, if you will, going back hundreds of years, and the military. We know it as the military industrial complex, the scientific elite, the technocratic elite. Dwight D. Eisenhower on January 17th, 1961. But it goes back hundreds of years to like, well, if you can develop a telescope to look out, can you develop like a battlefield telescope? Now generals can use it, right? The imagery of like Napoleon, with his one looking out and seeing guys shooting cannons at each other and shit. And I just had something pop into my head. I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, shooting cannons at each other and shit. And then it turns into like spy cameras, right? And I mean, think of I've had him on here a couple times. Active service member, Air Force Colonel Tyler Morton, Dr. Tyler Morton, PhD, in his book, from kites to fuck, what was it? From kites to spy planes, I think. I always get it right. Kites to something in Cold War. It's about surveillance, and he goes back all the way to World War I beforehand, all the way up to like modern day. And right, using the U-2, the SR-71, reconnaissance, ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It's the human eye, right? Amplified, all the way up to, right? I mean, at least what was the last thing that classified? Corona, Keyhole, Hexagon, all those satellites. And those are 50 years old. And those could read license plates back in the 60s. So it's the human eye just jacked up to 11, right? Like the Hubble telescope, the deep field, the ultra deep field. So, right. So now we have ears, we have eyes, sniffers, right? We know about, machines now, but I mean, in 1949, we found out that Valenti Beria's kind of brutal campaign to get the Soviets the A bomb worked in 1949, because off the coast of Alaska, aka close to Russia, the U.S. had a sniffer plane in 1949, probably doing just this, and they detected a cloud of radioactive fallout, and that's how we knew they had detonated it. It wasn't eyes on the ground. This is way before satellites. So what, like the hotel, I think that was the code name. None of the hotel satellites that could detect nuclear flash, the signature double flash. So what was I gonna say? I keep having that thought pop into my head. So the sniffer plane is right. So sorry. So it wasn't detecting things on the ground. It was actually like sniffing it. So now we have sniff. So we have the nose, we have the ears, we have the eyes. You could again say the ears with like sonar, the SOSUS net, which is like an underground radar, or not underground, underwater radar system. This like radar net we built all up and down the east and western coast of the United States so that we could detect Soviet subs. I can only imagine there's some amplification of taste, um, feeling, right? I would say that we probably have something that can like feel anything. But so what all these are amplifications of the human sense. And it's like what Ray Kurzweil says. My mouth is dry as fuck. It's what he says about the importance of moving any field of science into a field of information science. Because once you do that, then you can jack up the rate of advancement. So like building planes in 1902 versus World War I planes versus World War II planes versus like once we can start 3D modeling planes on computers, well, now because of Moore's law, right, technology doubling or computer chips doubling in capacity and their general power doubling every 18 months, now it's tied into the ability of computer chips to double every 18 months. So now like flight testing has gone from the field to computers, right? You could say the same with cars. Maybe you're testing airbags and side airbags, but once you can accurately 3D model one, then it's on a computer and the computer is subject to doubling in power every 18 months, right? That's what we use all the huge supercomputers for, is basically nonstop. We're just running war games with thermonuclear weapons. I don't remember where I read that, and I should probably have a source. But if I'm correct, very few things we actually like use them for like scientific advance, at least the really high powered ones, they're super advanced ones. We just use it to just run nonstop like war games where we would detonate nukes. Do the nukes work? But even there, I mean, so so we don't blow them up in the air or in the atmosphere or underground anymore. Granted, that was a treaty, but still, these are now subject to it, right? What Ray Kurzweil says about biology. So it's one thing when we're using, let's chop up this plant and add this acid to it and give it to this guy and see if his liver shuts down. Hey, it doesn't, cool. And it's like noted, but it's a very barbaric process versus once we can move it to gene sequencing. Why does that sound weird? Sequencing. Okay, not sequencing, gene sequencing. I got into medical school. Like the Human Genome Project, it took 13 years. And at the halfway mark, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it was subject to exponential growth rate. So it was something like, I want to say like at year 8 or 9 out of 13, they had only gone through 50%. And they're like, there's no way we're going to finish this. And whoever's in charge is like, it's obeying Moore's law. And then sure enough, they finished on time. So with any of these things, once you can kind of equate it to, once you can kind of pull it into information processing, then it gets like hijacked and it can start doubling up and doubling every 18 months. So you want to move it to a 3D modeling, not 3D, a computer modeling. You want it intrinsically tied to that because that's the rate of change that's moving the fastest. And that's because we're all doing shit with phones and computers and, bandwidth increases and internet increases. And so that one is the one that we as humans are really pushing forward faster than anything else. Right. Marshall McLuhan, humans are the sex organs of the machine world. So sorry, I am expecting a phone call. I'm expecting a phone call. Let me make sure it's not on silence because I'm a jackass who will absolutely put it on silence. So you want it to be pulled into information processing. Okay. So now there's two themes that we've now gone over. One, building analogous machines to the human senses, radar. It starts with the steampunk big ears, and then it turns into actual like shooting energy out and bouncing it back. With eyesight, right? It starts with a telescope, again, some Jules Verne shit. What was that Key and Peele sketch where it's like if gangsters were steampunk? Holy shit, that I forgot how funny that fucking sketch was. You lemony snicket looking ass. So, right. So we go from ears to, right? Early sniffing would be using dogs, like German Shepherds. Then we actually have like planes that could detect. So all these, we used to have these weird, like almost like javelins that we would release from planes, and then they had the sniffer apparatus on them, and they'd stab into the ground, and then they'd send back data. But it was like, I think it was nixed pretty quickly because they were like, this is so obvious. If someone just walking in Russia finds this, just like, you know, this like gunmetal black javelin that's like ominously beeping, it's like, that didn't just happen. So um, and then then all these things move from their steampunk Jules Verne version, the big ears, the telescope, the German Shepherd sniffing. They then move to a more technologically advanced, an evolution, if you will, of them, right? So it goes from amplifying what you already have, the human ear with big ears, the human eye with a telescope, a German Shepherd sniffing dog, to then it turns into an entirely new machine that is, all those other things require like a human user, and it's just a human senses amplified, big ears, telescope, right? Amplifying the eye, amplifying the ear. It then moves into a new thing entirely, a new, a building up entirely. So now radar, where there is no human ear, it's a radar sweeping, shooting out energy at different wavelengths and bouncing it back. So like, okay, there's a new thing. Yes, humans still operate it, but now it's a new thing, and it's made of steel, and it doesn't require like a human with his ear to it. Instead, we see it visually. So now we're seeing sound visually on a radar scope, right? Every sweep. Same with the sniffer plane, and I do not understand the technology and how that works. So I won't even try to. But right, eyes. It goes from a telescope to now a U2 camera to now a hexagon satellite, right? Going in deeper and deeper and looking in, right? So it's very important to point out this kind of initial evolution. Human ear to the Jules Verne analogous human ear that's still ultimately plugged into a human ear, to a new technology altogether, radar. Human eye to the Jules Verne steampunk telescope, to a new thing entirely, a U2 camera, a satellite camera. Again, like I said, I can't understand the sniffing thing, so I'm not going to try. Human, steampunk analogous to the brand new machine entirely. So that's one thing. Now back to the information processing. Is now obeying, once you can turn into an information processing thing. So now the stronger radar is now based on, can we model it on a computer, and how to make it more, I don't know shit about radar. How do we use more efficient, I don't know, energy outbursts? Does it spin faster? Do we use different materials? Is it a material science? Is it a metallurgical thing? Same with lenses, different optic lenses. How are we doing it? Can we absorb in different spectra, right? Since now it's not even the telescope. Now it's like, well, do we even have to look at it in visible light, right? Because what's a human limitation? We can't see through clouds. Well, fuck it. Do IR, do thermal, do X-ray, do gamma, right? So you do do UV. So you start to see it in different ways. So now these things are starting to bend kind of even further past, right? And then again, once you start modeling them on computers, now they're obeying information processing technology. So now every 18 months when it gets better, now these by default get better. All right. So we have that 3-tier evolution, the human thing, the Jules Verne thing, and then the new machine entirely. Now obeying, and then the other kind of column 2 is now obeying information processing. Okay. If something like ESP and psychokinesis, through double blind placebo, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and some classified program found that it is real, well, then the only thing that, or at least not only, let's not pigeonhole ourselves. What we could conclude is that these are human senses. All right. They're not as obvious as an ear or a nose or a mouth, right? These flappy cartilaginous things that it's like they're very, very clearly do something. But what you could do through functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRIs, is you could actually, or nuclear spectroscopy, which I don't know how that works. You could take these individuals and like when they put like an fMRI helmet on you and they play a song and they see the parts of your brain that are, correlated to music or sound, and they see those light up, and then they put a freshly cut orange under your nose and you smell that and they see those parts. They see your eyes and what part, maybe you see food and they see the parts related to your glands, right? Or an attractive woman, they see like the sexual organs, right? So you map the human brain, you can see what's how it's happening. What you would do is you would do an fMRI and try to find what is the mode of action, what part of the brain. Is there a field that we're maybe not detecting, like neutrinos or something, or like before we had any technology, just as unimaginable, something like X-ray vision or gamma ray vision or seeing things in thermal or IR. Even though we were awash in it for all of human history, all of universe history, we didn't know it until we could detect it, and all of a sudden we realized it's been there the whole time. Is find that. So what is it a field? What part of the brain's detecting it? Is there another organ like the ear or the nose or the mouth? Is it something deep in the brain? Is it not in a traditional thing? Is it not like clearly like a chunk of cartilage in the middle of your brain? It's like, what's that thing? I don't know. Maybe it's something more like the inside of your ear with balance, right? There's like 3 molecules that kind of are bouncing around, and the incus, the malleus, the stapes, these little tiny bones, something to do with balance. Like maybe it's something so infinitesimal that it's not as obvious as an ear. Maybe it's fluctuations in like neutrinos. I don't fucking know. It's something. And just like, and we're getting out there, but if you could find a way through functional magnetic resonance imaging, and then maybe like looking at it in every possible wavelength, you could maybe find, unless it's just magic, in which case all this is out the window, you could find what part of the brain is accessing that, and hopefully what it is that it's accessing. Is it a field? It would have to be some sort of field or like wavelength, right? Maybe it's just another wavelength. And just like we could never imagine thermal vision, maybe there's just something else, and it's just called ESP vision, and it's nothing fantastic at all. Well, it is fantastic, but it's just a science that we're oblivious to, like cavemen were oblivious to Wi-Fi. So what you could then do is you go back to step 1, the ears, the nose, the eyes, the mouth, whatever. Find that. Let's just say there's something in the brain. Let's just, I don't know what, just say it's a layer of tissue, just something we can wrap our minds around, right? No pun intended. We could then take that. Now, how do we amplify that? So how do we make our Mark 1, our Gen 1 Jules Verne shit? Well, we would maybe, I don't know, find some, once we can detect the field, it would, I don't know, maybe you take this guy that has ESP capabilities and maybe you then enhance them, like the giant radar dish or the Jules Verne telescope. I don't know, maybe some sort of helmet, right? Maybe some sort of helmet helps conduct it better. I don't know, maybe they find, I don't know, like a tungsten helmet or so, like an osmium titanium alloy. I have no idea. Or maybe it's the absence of that. Maybe it's being in a Faraday cage. Maybe that enhances it. Who knows? So this would be our first generation kind of steampunk shit. Then you would go, much like from the ear to the ear, the big metal ears, to a whole new thing entirely. Remember that third jump into a new technology entirely, radar. Or from the eye to the telescope in the eye to the camera. You would go from first detecting. So we got to go all the way back to step 1. At least we have to find the actual sense organ that is doing it. Step 2 would be, how do we amplify that, like some steampunk shit, probably a helmet or a cage, or I don't know. And then step 3 would be take that technology, take that steampunk apparatus and then turn it in, make that jump into the new technology, some sort of machine, some sort of device. I don't know what it would be, just some sort of like a radar or like an eye, which would probably be the easier part. The hard part would be detecting what part of the brain detects it and the field. The next hard part would be how do we amplify it, that steampunk shit. And then the third layer, right? And I know I keep repeating myself, but right, eye to the telescope. Then you make that third jump to the camera, the ear, the big steampunk ear to a radar. You go from that. So we have first we got to figure out. So again, I know I'm repeating myself, but we already have a leg up with the ears and the nose, and like we know what they are. We have for all of human history. This one is, we are behind the eight ball because we got to go in and actually figure out what it is that it's sensing it. Not only that, we have to figure out so we have to figure out the organ that is sensing it, and then what is it that it is sensing. So like we get a leg up, right? We know about the ear, and then we also know about sound waves. We know about the eye, and we know about electromagnetic waves. So we already have like a leg up on these, right? We know about the olfactory functions. So we're starting at like step -1. But you go in, and the first thing you have to do is try to detect. And I'm not sure which would come first, or maybe if you found one and the other would then imply the other. But you would find the equivalent to the ear, the ESP ear, or the psychokinesis eye, or whatever the fuck it is. And then maybe it would happen at the same time. You then detect the field. Is it sound waves? Is it electromagnetic waves? Is it olfactory particles? Maybe you detect those first, and then that implies the organ in the brain. So once we do that, now we're at level 1, the eye, the ear, the mouth. Level 2 would be the big steampunk ears, the telescope, whatever. So that would be the sort of kind of apparatus that we're putting on these ESP, savants. Number 3 would be the creation of the radar, creation of the camera that can see in different wavelengths. It would be a device. I have no idea what that device would look like. Cameras kind of resemble an eye, right? I mean, I'm looking at mine right now. It kind of resembles an eye. Radar systems kind of resemble ears, right? A big curve thing. They kind of do. I don't know. Maybe it would resemble something like a brain. I don't know. Maybe it'd be like a weird gelatinous machine, like a synthetic gelatin. I have no idea. Right. So we'd have to get to that step 1 where we detect the part of the brain and then what it is that it's detecting, right? Ear detects sound waves. Eye detects electromagnetic waves. So thing in brain, we'll just call it, I don't, sixth sense. And then we'd have to detect the actual thing that it's detecting. We'll call it sixth wave. I have no idea. Sixth sense and sixth wave. Then you would amplify that with metal or, like I said, a cage. I don't know. And then the third would be the jump to the artificial, the jump from the steampunk ears to the radar, from the steampunk telescope to the camera, from the steampunk ESP apparatus to whatever it is. I'm thinking of like Ex Machina, where, right, they have like software, hardware, and he develops wetware, and it's that weird synthetic kind of brain. Maybe it would be something like that. It would be some DARPA wetware. Well, now, and this is the purpose of this whole topic, this whole discussion, this whole schizophrenic solo rant, is once we have that and model it, well, probably was modeled on a supercomputer. It's probably not, we have to learn how to model it on the supercomputer. It probably was born there. Well, that is now subject to Moore's Law and all the black funding you need. So, like an eye to the telescope, to the camera, to the U2 camera, to the hexagon keyhole Corona satellite cameras, seeing in different wavelengths, reading, license plates from the fucking moon or whatever they're doing, or radar being able to detect every little thing, the SOSUS net in the ocean detecting nuclear subs. Well, if you could use this, you could view everything, because you'd be taking that, and then much like even the best human eye with 20/20 vision, 20/10 vision versus the best human eye with the best telescope is nothing compared to a U2 camera, which is nothing compared to a satellite camera. This would be ESP dialed up to a trillion. You could detect anything. If a guy with an unhoned skill could find a special access program nuclear weapon silo, then you know, that's the equivalent to like some circus show. Like he has the best ears. He can hear a butterfly's wings flapping. That's nothing compared to radar that can detect bombers 3,000 miles onto the horizon. He has the best eyesight. He can pick out an acorn from a pile of brown leaves. That's nothing compared to a satellite reading a license plate from 30,000 miles up. So even the best ESP psychokinesis guy detecting the nuclear missile silo, uh, enacting change on that neutrino detector would be nothing, would be nothing compared to this wet works sixth sense detecting the sixth wave thing. You would keep it secret because everyone knows about optics. So we keep that technology secret, but it's not like optics themselves are classified. Like the KGB is going to do it, right? Like that was the whole problem with the A bomb was like the science wasn't secret. Like how we did it was, but given enough time, like the laws of physics are the same. Eventually, given enough time, every nation's going to master it. This is something that is not like intuitive. You would keep it quiet. You would publicly mock it and ridicule it. Oh, ooh, what is it, a wizard? Where's your crystal ball? You could just keep it completely classified. But regardless, classified or not, whatever. A bomb, classified or not. I mean, we only started developing our A bomb after we found out the Germans were developing theirs. But those weird like graphite, like those cubes and heavy water shit. Leo Szilard, The Winter Fortress by Neil Bascombe. Like, so the next best thing is if you can't keep it silent or classified, you at least want to master it before anyone else, right? Just like we mastered the A bomb before anyone else, mastered the hydrogen bomb before anyone else. I mean, man, take that thing. I mean, you could see everyone everywhere. There would be no hiding. There would be no such thing as classification. Fuck quantum encryption. You could just go in and read the unencrypted message on the other side. You could do anything. Fuck directed energy weapons. If you could bend a spoon with your mind, you could just turn off the guidance system on a Russian nuke. And now, and this is the sort of orgasm culmination of the solar rant. What happens when hyper intelligent AI gets a hold of that wetworks sixth sense, sixth wave technology? Because up until now, it's still humans using this thing. What happens when AI uses it? It could be 50 chess moves ahead. There would truly be nothing you could do to stop it, in which case you could even argue that AI at this moment is already in charge. We wouldn't know. It would be so far ahead. Everything you did you'd be falling into one of its plans. But fuck it, let's not even go to sci-fi. Let's just go back to, does this technology exist? Is this thing in some 10-mile deep bunker under NORAD? And it is like the most classified program of all. Fuck UFO technology. Okay, cool. You can fly around real fast. Imagine something where there is, slight looking ahead in the future. Oh, that was a thing that I haven't even touched on. One of the things they could do is they could kind of detect things like not a whole lot, but like a couple minutes before they happened. I can't believe I completely forgot to touch on that. ESP, psychokinesis, and then I think actual, I guess, like, what is it, premonition, seeing the future. And again, they explained it scientifically by saying, could it have something to do with tachyons? Could it have something to do with, like you drop a rock in the middle of the lake and things ripple outwards from it. When an event happens in space time, like tachyons ripple out from it in all directions, including backwards in time. So, like an event in the future is actually sending tachyons back in time. Could these sort of ESP sensitive individuals be able to detect those things? Again, go back through all the same steps, find the organ, find the actual field it's detecting, steampunk amplification, and then turn it into a machine, and the machine goes into information technology. So throw that into this wetware kind of synthetic DARPA brain, and it's seeing the future, and it can see anything, and it can enact physical change. It could see things in the future and then use that jacked up spoon bending technology to either avoid those things and put us on some new parallel timeline, or it could see something it likes and use everything in its power to ensure it happens, and perhaps ensure that it happens to a bigger degree, whatever that thing is, an explosion, a fucking investment. I don't know. So it could see anything, like seeing the nuclear silo. It could physically affect change on the world, because none of this, it still matters, but it matters a lot less when you, no, I'd take that back. But the very fact that it could then change, alter them, with zero fingerprint, there's not like evidence that it sees the future, it sees a nuclear missile silo somewhere, and then we have to use directed energy weapons or hit it with a missile or a bomb or send in Delta Force. It's very obvious that we did something. It's one thing to be able to see it without a satellite, just remote viewing it. It's a whole other thing to be able to affect it with psychokinesis, with the zero fingerprint. And then third, you could see it in the future through premonition. This sort of, again, not magic, but if this thing was all, basically reverse engineered, broken down and amplified, the organ, the sense that, or the field that it's detecting, the Jules Verne phase, the machine phase, and then finally the fourth thing is applied to information technology. And then the fifth would be AI taking it over. Right? Yeah. So yeah, defining what it is, the ear and acoustics, right? That's step one. Step two is Jules Verning it. Step three is turning it into radar. Step four is having that radar then become obedient to information technology progression through Moore's law. Step five is AI taking it over. Step one is the eye and what it sees, electromagnetic waves. Step two is the telescope. Step three is turning it into a machine, a camera, on a satellite, a U2. Step four is making that obey information technology and then advancing every 18 months per Moore's law. Step five is AI taking it over. Same thing with sniffing, same thing with tasting, same thing with touching. You go through those 5 steps. And then it would also be the part of the brain, right? The organ, the thing that detects it, and the field that it's detecting. Step 2 is Jules Verning it. Step 3 is turning it into a machine. Step 4 is that machine obeying Moore's law through information technology. Step 5 is AI taking over. I mean, what if? It would be so, there's like one thing I always point back to, and it's how like the future progresses, but it never progresses in the way we think it is, which is the most just bullshit blanket statement ever. Early bird gets the worm. Like, that's not okay. Yeah. And what goes up must come down. It's not some brilliant observation, but rather like way back in the day, we thought everyone was going to have their own personal hot air balloon. So what is it saying now? It's saying that everyone will have access to air travel. Now, how did that play out? It played out with, affordable commercial flight. You know, everyone will have their own horse and buggy. Well, what was it implying? We all have our own, like, faster than foot, ground travel. How did it play out? We all got cars. Everyone will be able to, like, there are old, like, 1900s, like, everything I'm referring to is like there's this magazine article from 1900, and it was predictions about the year 2000. The other thing was like was firefighters, and they had these like leather wings that were like, I know I've said it 1,000 times, but they were like these Jules Verne steampunk shit, like these mechanical wings that they could like flex their arms and they'd fly. and it showed them up on high rises, which at the time were like 10 stories. And it's like, they'll be able to put out fires in the air. But like, what was it implying? Using flight to fight fires from above as opposed to just from the sides spraying it with a hose. How did it play out? You know, planes dropping fire suppressants on forest fires, right? Wasn't necessarily wings, but it was still fighting fire from the air. Another one was they had this like it looked like a big like grinding, like something you throw trash into, but you could just dump books into it, and then it was like connected to a tube which was just on like a plate on your head. And the idea was that you could access all these books. How did it play out? Like the internet, Wikipedia, Audible, podcasts, right? So they were correct, but the exact mode in which they predicted these things didn't come out the same way, but they still happened. So we always predict what's the future going to be like. Some omnipotent power using technology. It might not be a Mach 10 spy plane versus a Mach 20 spy plane. Like we might be talking about firefighters with leather wings. Like it might not be that. You know, encryption, double encryption, quantum encryption. It might not be that. It might be some form of wetware jacked into a supercomputer detecting tachyons in remote viewing. Now, it'd still be the same, a super advanced power, but not in the way we thought it was. I'm glad I did the solo rant. I needed to flesh out all those thoughts for myself more than anything. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a side effect that you guys get to listen to it. Get to listen to it. What a fucking douchey thing to say. You get to listen to it. You get to listen to my thoughts. That would a fucking douchey, egotistical thing to say. But yeah, get the book Phenomena by Annie Jacobsen. You may be wondering, oh, when's she coming on? She's not. I've reached out to her like 100 times in the last year and a half, and she will not respond. And I mean, she's been on Rogan, but now I do have two Rogan guests in my library, Howard Bloom and Dr. Lindsay Fitzharris. But who knows? Maybe I'll get her as well. I hope to. I did get in touch with one of the people in her book, Uri Geller, who lives in Israel, friends with Netanyahu, and he works with the Mossad. I did get in touch with him, and he said thank you, but no thank you. So that was cool. But yeah, some food for thought. I've been sending that book to people and asking them to listen to it so I could have this discussion with them. And then finally it was just like, fuck it, let's just do a solo rant, start screaming at the camera. So yeah, Get It Phenomena by Annie Jacobsen. It's phenomenal. Forgive me. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it.